It's really kind of amazing how tools like ChatGPT just, boom, became part of everyday life, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
You ask it something, anything, and you get this instant answer. Generate text, code. It's powerful stuff.
Right.
And the big draw, of course, is that it seems free. No credit card needed up front.
Exactly. That free aspect is incredibly appealing. But, the old saying, if you're not paying, you're the product. Maybe it's not always that simple, but there's often, well, a trade-off.
That's what we want to dig into today, these hidden costs of
Mm,
using free AI. We've looked at a few sources, and we're
okay.
going to focus on, let's see, four main areas.
Oh.
Data privacy, ethical stuff,
Hmm.
who actually owns the content you make, and this idea of becoming maybe too dependent on it long term.
Yeah, those are all really crucial points to consider. And just to be clear, we're not saying don't use these tools. They're incredibly useful.
Definitely.
It's more about understanding the full picture, right? Knowing what the deal is so you can decide how and maybe when to use them wisely.
Exactly. Okay, so let's dive in. First up, data privacy. This feels like the big one for a lot of people. What's actually happening with our data when we use, say, the free ChatGPT interface?
Well, the core thing, and this comes up in multiple sources, like one from Mintz, is OpenAI is pretty upfront that data you submit through their non-API service, basically the free web version most people use that data, can be used to improve their model.
Improve their model. So my questions, my prompts, they're essentially training material.
Potentially, yes. Think about it. You're brainstorming sensitive business strategy, maybe asking personal health questions, or even just drafting emails. That information gets processed.
And if that info is sensitive or maybe covered by something like GDPR or CCPA,
That's the concern. Could that data, even if anonymized, somehow inadvertently get surfaced later? Or contribute to an output for another user? It's like you're adding bricks to their building, but you don't know exactly how your brick will be used.
makes you think twice about pasting in that confidential report draft, doesn't it?
It really should. And another angle on this, highlighted in an ISACA article, is our tendency to just click agree.
Oh, the terms of service. Yeah, guilty as charged. Who reads all that?
Exactly. They're often long, complex, but buried in there are the details about data collection, storage, sharing. The convenience factor makes us sometimes, well, overlook the potential risks we're signing up for.
It's that instant gratification thing. We want the answer now.
Right. And there was a deeper dive, like a full privacy report on ChatGPT that flagged some specific areas of, let's say, ambiguity.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, for instance, under data collection, it wasn't totally clear if certain types of personal info were definitely excluded. And for data limitation, it was a bit fuzzy whether they only collect what's strictly needed for the product to work.
So maybe they collect more than is absolutely essential. That lack of clarity is a bit
Yeah.
unsettling.
It can be. Then there's data sharing. The report said info is shared with third parties for things like analytics, research, improving the product.
Okay, standard enough, maybe?
But while it says personal info isn't sold, it wasn't clear if it's shared for third-party marketing.
Yeah.
And this de-identified data point.
Anonymized data, right?
Yeah, it may be anonymized, but the report noted the process wasn't clearly defined. How robust is that anonymization? That's kind of a key question.
Right, because anonymized can mean different things if it can be re-identified somehow.
Exactly. So there's still some gray areas. Encryption during transit seems okay, but encryption at rest was noted as unclear in that report. It's a patchwork, some good practices, some unknowns.
And it's not just theoretical risk, is it? Didn't OpenAI have an incident?
They did. Sam Altman, the CEO, publicly acknowledged what he called a significant issue, a bug that actually exposed some users' conversation histories to other users.
Wow.
Now, they said it was a bug in a specific library. They fixed it, but it just goes to show things can go wrong. Data breaches happen. Even with the best intentions, handling this much data carries inherent risk.
Okay, so the privacy cost isn't zero. Got it. Let's shift gears a bit. What about the ethical side of things? This feels maybe less tangible, but still important.
Definitely. Two big areas often come up here: bias in the AI's output and the environmental footprint.
Environmental footprint. Okay, start there. How does me asking for a poem impact the environment? Seems like a stretch.
It's all about the infrastructure behind it. These huge AI models run in massive data centers, and those data centers use enormous amounts of electricity, both to run the computers and, crucially, to cool them down.
Okay, makes sense. Computers generate heat.
A lot of heat when you're doing these kinds of calculations. An MIT news piece highlighted a pretty startling projection. By 2026, data centers worldwide could be the fifth largest consumer of electricity globally, like more than some entire countries.
Fifth largest. That's huge.
It is. And generative AI is a big driver of that growth. Training these models is incredibly energy intensive.
Do we have any numbers on that? Like for training something like GPT-3?
There was an estimate, I think, from Google and Berkeley researchers back in 2021 suggesting training GPT-3 used something like 1,287 megawatt hours, enough electricity to power around 120 average U.S. homes for a year, just for one training run. And the estimated carbon footprint was over 500 tons of CO2.
Wow. Okay. That's definitely not free from an environmental perspective.
Not at all. And the demand for these data centers is exploding, often outpacing the development of sustainable energy sources to power them. So yeah, often relying on fossil fuels. It's a hidden environmental cost baked into that free service.
Right. Okay, so that's the environmental angle. What about the other ethical issue you mentioned, bias?
Yeah, this is a big one. Large language models learn from the vast amounts of text data they're trained on. And guess what? That data reflects the biases present in society, scraped from the internet and books.
So garbage in, garbage out. Or maybe bias in, bias out.
Pretty much. A survey paper on bias in LLMs pointed this out clearly. The models can learn, perpetuate, and even amplify harmful social biases.
Can you give some examples? How does that show up?
Sure, the survey mentioned things like stereotyping, associating certain groups with negative concepts, like Muslim with terrorist, or using derogatory language that reflects hostile societal expectations.
Oof.
Yeah. Or even just performing worse on certain dialects, like African American English, or reinforcing exclusionary norms, like assuming only two genders exist, or misrepresenting groups, like giving negative responses to prompts about autism.
So it can range from subtle slights to outright harmful stereotypes.
Exactly. And these biases aren't just offensive, they can lead to real harms. What researchers call representational harms, misrepresenting groups, and allocational harms, where the bias might lead to unfair distribution of resources or opportunities if the AI is used in decision-making.
That's a serious responsibility for the developers and something users should be aware of too. The free answer might not be a neutral or fair one.
Precisely. Okay, let's move to the next hidden cost. Content ownership. This gets complicated fast.
Yeah, I use an AI to help write a marketing email or generate an image. Who owns that? Me. The AI company. Nobody.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Based on current interpretations, like guidance from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office mentioned in that Mints article, it seems content purely generated by AI probably isn't eligible for copyright.
Because copyright requires a human author.
Generally, yes. AI isn't legally seen as an author or inventor. Now, if you take the AI output and significantly modify it, adding your own substantial creative input, then your contributions might be copyrightable. But the raw AI output itself, likely not.
Okay, so I probably don't own the copyright to the AI's text. But what about the stuff I put in if I give it my secret business plan to summarize?
That's a major risk area: intellectual property leakage. Inputting confidential information, trade secrets, or potentially patentable ideas into a free AI tool could destroy that protection. Well, trade secrets depend on secrecy. If you disclose it to a third party without a strong confidentiality agreement, which you usually don't have with a free consumer tool, you might have legally forfeited its trade secret status. Same goes for patentability. Disclosure can sometimes prevent you getting a patent later.
Yikes. So definitely don't paste your company's crown jewels into the free chat window.
Probably not a good idea, no. And there's another IP risk too, but related to the output.
What's that?
The AI is trained on vast data sets. Some of that data is likely copyrighted material itself. So the output the AI generates could potentially infringe on someone else's existing copyright or trademark.
So the AI could spit out text or code that's basically copied from its training data.
It's a possibility.
No.
The Mints piece mentioned a lawsuit involving a coding AI tool where it allegedly reproduced copyrighted code almost exactly. So even if you don't own the output, you, the user, could potentially be liable if that output infringes on someone else's rights.
Man, that's messy. It's like navigating a legal minefield. Did that privacy report touch on ownership at all?
It did mention that users retain ownership of their data, but then added it was unclear if OpenAI claims a copyright license to that user data, and if so, how limited that license might be. more ambiguity.
Okay, so ownership is fuzzy at best and risky at worst.
Got it. Let's talk about the final point, long-term dependency. How might relying on these tools affect us down the line?
This is more about the impact on our own skills and learning. An article from CompTIA made a really good analogy.
Which was?
Think about doing someone's homework for them. You give them the answers, but they don't actually learn the material or develop the skill to solve the problems themselves.
Right. They become dependent on you for the answers.
Exactly. The concern is that free, easy-to-use AI tools like ChatGPT can become a sort of cognitive crutch. If we constantly let the AI do the thinking, writing the essay, solving the math problem, generating the ideas without engaging our own brains.
We don't build those mental muscles ourselves. Precisely. We might see a decline in critical thinking, logical reasoning, even creativity, and maybe work ethic, because the hard part is being outsourced to the machine.
The CompTIA piece gave examples, right? Like with math problems.
Yeah. The process of struggling with a word problem, figuring out how to set it up and solve it, that's where the learning happens. If you just feed it ChatGPT and get the answer, you bypass all of that learning.
Good for writing, I guess.
Oh, research.
Absolutely. Researching, synthesizing information,
Yeah.
crafting an argument, those are skills built through practice. If the AI does it for you, you're not developing those skills. In creative work, relying too much on AI could maybe stifle your own unique voice and imagination.
There's a worry, then, about a future generation of workers who might be less capable of independent thought or complex problem solving because they've always had AI to lean on.
That's the long-term concern, yes. If AI handles too much of the brain work, do our own cognitive abilities atrophy? Like unused muscles, it could make us less adaptable, less resilient when we can't rely on the AI. It's a really sobering thought. The convenience is incredible, but there's this potential underlying cost to our own development.
It's all about finding balance, isn't it? Using the tools effectively, but not letting them replace the fundamental processes of learning and thinking for ourselves.
Definitely. Wow. Okay, so just to recap quickly, we've talked about the hidden costs of free AI tools like ChatGPT falling into roughly 4 buckets. Data privacy risks, what happens to our inputs, the lack of clarity, potential breaches.
Right. Then the ethical concerns, the environmental impact from energy use, and the potential for bias baked into the AI's responses.
Then, the murky waters of content ownership. You likely don't own the output. Your inputs might lose protection, and the output could even infringe on others' rights.
And finally, this potential for long-term dependency, where over-reliance could hinder our own learning, critical thinking, and skill development.
It's a lot to consider. These tools are amazing, no doubt, but free clearly doesn't mean without consequence.
Absolutely. Being aware of these trade-offs is key. It allows you, the user, to make informed choices, to weigh the convenience against the potential costs for your specific situation.
So maybe the takeaway is use them, enjoy the power, but do it with your eyes open. Understand the exchange that's happening, even when no money changes hands.
Well put.
And maybe a final thought for everyone listening to chew on. As we chase this incredible effortless efficiency that AI offers, are we inadvertently chipping away at things we value? Our privacy, our ethical standards, our creative ownership, maybe even our own ability to think deeply and learn effectively.
That's the big question, isn't it? Something definitely worth mulling over as this technology becomes even more integrated into our lives.